Okay. All right. Hi, everybody online. We are getting some things set up in here still, so thank you for your patience. We'll kick off in just a bit. All right, everybody, thank you for joining us today. Everybody online, if somebody could just confirm you can hear us and see us all right.
I can hear you all right.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So with that, I'll go ahead and call us to order at 5:08 p.m. We'll go first to roll call. When I say your name, please say present and voting or present. Speaker Allen.
Present.
Majority Leader Johnson.
Present.
Chairperson Brunner. Chairperson Smith. Chairperson Grzillo. Legislator Ali. Is it present in the chat? Legislator Aso. Legislator Aso. Legislator Fosna.
Present.
Legislator Johnson.
Present.
Legislator Lunger.
Present.
Legislator Markowitz.
Present.
I see a present in the chat from Legislator Salman. Legislator Mesa.
Present.
Legislator Outing.
Present.
Legislator Smith.
Present.
Legislator Staley.
Present.
Legislator Weikes. Okay, with that, we've certainly got quorum, so go ahead and move forward. Next, we have our land acknowledgement statement. The HDMI is being a little tricky today, so okay. We recognize the wrongs done to those forcibly removed from their homelands and commit to fostering an environment of inclusion that is responsive to the needs of First Peoples through our words, policies, and actions. Next, we have the approval of the agenda, which I know right now is not super clear in the room. It's on the Zoom, and we've had it projected and sent to everyone. Congress. Are there any motions to amend this time? If not, we'll move to a voice vote to approve. Okay, hearing no motions. Yays?
Yay.
Nays? With that, the agenda is approved. Next, we'll go to approval of meeting minutes from February 16th. I see we don't have a link for this right now. Do we have a link for this? Or do we need to table? So we will not approve those today since we don't have the link to approve. Okay, next we'll go to new business. We've got some approvals today for the validations committee. I know I've explained this a few different times now, but I'll give another brief run over. So the validations committee is a committee for the elections for Student Congress. Basically, their job is to ensure that the election is run with integrity, and any grievances that do come up are handled basically as like a mini court system. So they're able to help kind of decide, okay, has a wrongdoing been done, and if it has, then deciding action for that. So I have a few people going up today, our last three. So how this will work is just like how we do legislators. I'll introduce them. We'll have a quick introduction of themselves. You can have the opportunity to ask any questions that you have. And then they'll be asked to step out or into the waiting room online. And we'll do discussion and vote, and then we'll go to the meeting. So first up, we have Emily Kin, and I know her through student organization involvement, and she is a very hard worker, and I know she's been great at being, neutral in different decisions that we've made and our experiences together. So with that, I'll give it over to her to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emily. Thank you all for having me here.
I know I saw her. Just a second. Oh, yeah.
Were you guys able to hear me?
I'm not sure if we can hear you, Emily. That might be on our.
I can hear you, Emily.
I'm able to hear her through the online.
Okay, we got you now. We're connected on a different speaker. Just a little
Okay,
bit.
gotcha.
Go right ahead.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily. Thank you all for having me here. Thank you, Maris, for inviting me. And yeah.
Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself, like as a student, like what you're studying and your involvement that you have?
Yes, of course. So I am currently a third year psychology student. I am minoring in communication and deaf studies. I'm also a member of the Honors College and a member of Psi Chi, as well as the Treasurer of Homes, as Maris mentioned. I pride myself in being a strong academic student, being very determined and hardworking, and a very just admirable person.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for Emily? Okay, I see none. So with that, Emily, I'm gonna put you into the waiting room really quick and then we'll bring you back when we're done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, she's now in a waiting room. Is there any discussion? It's not a huge meeting. I just have a we were just discussing about the technology issues in person. Is there any discussion on Emily before we go to the roll call? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to vote. Can I state your name? Yay, nay, or abstain? Speaker Allen?
Yay.
Majority Leader Johnson?
Yay.
Chairperson Brunner? Yay. Chairperson Smith?
Yay.
Chairperson Brazil? Yay. Legislator Ali? Legislator Hully? Legislator Plasma? Yay. Legislator Johnson?
Yay.
Legislator Lunger?
Yay.
Legislator Markowitz?
Yay.
Legislator Mason?
Yay.
Legislator Outing?
Yay.
And we have a yay in the chat from Legislator Salman. Legislator Smith?
Yay.
Legislator Staley?
Yay.
And then there's a yay in the chat from Legislator Ali as well. Legislator Wiggis? Okay, with that, Emily Kuhn is approved as a member of the Validation Committee. Congratulations, Emily, you're approved to be a member of the Validation Committee.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next we'll go ahead and move forward. Our next approval is Kristen Seifert, and he's also going up to be a member of the Validation Committee. I know of him through some mutual friends, and I know he's been involved in campus, specifically through athletics. And so, we're trying to do our job of diversifying student involvement within this group. Yeah, I know Griffin's been a great student and it's been involved in campus. So with that, I'll hand it to
Hi guys, my name is Griffin Seifert. As Maris said, I was previously in athletics. I'm an interpersonal communications major. I'm in my fourth year in administration. And in my fourth, as I said, I'm in my fourth year. So, with the emergence of all the so-called election world, I think it's important that our education systems, our universities, to really support good, something that shows an example of what an election and campaign should look like. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions? Hey, Griffin. Okay, you can go ahead and just step outside. Okay, does anybody have any discussion? Right now, we'll go to roll call vote. Yay, nay, or abstain, Speaker Allen?
Yay.
Majority Leader Johnson?
Yay.
Chairperson Bremer? Here. Chairperson Smith?
Yay.
Chairperson Brazillo?
Yay.
Legislator Ali?
Yay.
Legislator Fosso? Yay. Legislator Johnson?
Yay.
Legislator Lunger?
Yay.
Legislator Markowitz?
Yay.
Legislator Mason?
Yay.
Legislator Oden,
Yay.
Legislator Salman, Legislator Salman, Legislator Smith,
Yay.
Legislator Staley,
Yay.
Legislator Weckes. And there's a yay in the chat from Legislator Salman. Okay, with that, Griffin Seifert is approved as a member of the Validations Committee. And congratulations on your approval to the Validations Committee. Okay. Last but certainly not least, we have Sai Zaman as also a member of the Validations Committee. He's also somebody that I know through a couple different avenues, through student org involvement, but also through like a work setting. And he represents the grad students actually, so he is an MBA student. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to him to give an intro to himself. Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry, Maris. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we gotcha.
It's not the first time that's happened. So, hey everyone, my name is Sai Zaman, and like Maris stated, I'm part of the grad program here working on my master's in business administration. Outside of school, I work as an engineer, and outside of work and school, I try to be involved in a lot of volunteering efforts, whether it's Gleamers, Forgotten Harvest, or helping people find jobs in tech. Good to be here.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have questions for Sai? Okay, we'll go ahead and do, or Sai, you can, I'll put you in the waiting room real quick and bring you back.
Sounds good.
Okay, he's in the waiting room. Does anybody have a discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to roll call vote. Yay, Mayor abstain, Speaker Allen,
Yeah.
Majority Leader Johnson,
Yay.
Chairperson Brenner, Chairperson Smith,
Yeah.
Chairperson Brazil,
Yay.
Legislator Ali,
Yay.
Legislator Fosna, Legislator Johnson,
Yay.
Legislator Lunger, Legislator Markowitz,
Yay.
Legislator Mason,
Yay.
Legislator Oden.
Yay.
Is that a yay?
Yes.
Legislator Salman? Yay in the chat. Legislator Smith?
Yay.
Legislator Staley?
Yeah, no, oh my God, I'm sorry. Yay. Huh.
Sorry, I clicked that earlier. Legislator Whitfield? Okay. With that, Sai Zaman is approved to the Validation Committee. Welcome back, Sai. Congratulations, you've been approved as a member of the Validation Committee.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay. Next, we'll go on to our guest speakers. Today we've got two, and we'll start first with Dr. Faye Hansen, and she's an associate professor in the biological sciences, and she also deals quite a bit with the student organization. So with that, I'll pass it over to her. I know she's joined us here on Zoom, so we'll listen through our new speaker here. Oh, you're on mute. Okay. There we go.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, I'm really happy to talk to everybody today and to be invited to talk. I put together a slideshow. Pictures are kind of my currency. They're from various talks, so they're not specifically organized in a way that maybe you're used to getting. But anyway, or maybe you are. So let me bring that up and share my screen. Cannot share screen while other participant is sharing. So I guess we have to have the current screen down. Thank you.
There we go. And we're working on some stuff in person too. Our projector's down right now, it seems.
They're still saying oh, can you see my screen now?
Oh, yep, we gotcha. And now we got you
Okay.
in person still.
Great. Okay. And thank you for the closed captioning. Yeah. So, what I wanted to I go through a little bit of a background on, who we are, what do we do, who benefits from us, and how can you be involved, but how have you, Student Congress has been involved. And we have a nice video on our website in OU that has the students talking, but this will be me talking. I wanted to give a little bit of a background about how the farm got started, because I am actually a biomedical scientist, but I became an organic farmer. I used to study cardiovascular disease and taught biomedical courses here for a long time. And I took a sabbatical and got my certificate in organic farming, and that changed. It was really kind of for personal reasons, but it was transformational for me. And what I'm finding is a lot of the students that get involved with this, it's pretty transformational for them as well. But what happened when I got back from the Michigan State is that I was at an Earth Day program at the Oakland Center, and there were 3 different groups there that had the idea. They all sort of started talking about they'd sort of like to have some kind of a garden, and I'm like, that's great, because I'm looking for people that want to do that too. And so that started us. It was really student generated, and I was just happy to find students that had this interest. And so eventually, through a process that took a long time, but we are the farm that we have today, which these are some images from that. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about where we are and what we've been up to before I talk about specifically about Student Congress. If you're not aware, so we're over here, but when we made a proposal to Oakland to start some kind of a garden, everybody had the idea that, of course, we would be over by the dorms or by the Oakland Center or something like that. And lo and behold, we were assigned a little spot out here on Adams and Butler Road, just at the south end of the golf course. And it's pretty out of the way, but it has worked out well for us in the long term, except for the fact that it's hard to get there. So this is what it looks like today. And this building here, I'll talk more about these buildings in a little bit, but this is where our headquarters are. We have one part of this particular building. So here's our hoop house. These are our gardens. So we have about 6/10 of an acre in cultivation. Yeah, whoops, I'm sorry, I don't want me to do that. So basically, this is what the site looked like. The Varner house, Woody Varner's house, was here and it got torn down. But before that, we envisioned that it could be a student co-op. It was a really big house and had all sorts of interesting thoughts about this. But these 3 buildings are former chicken coops for sort of the beginning of industrial farming. And they've been abandoned since then, but it's pretty handy to have these structures. And at one time, the very first OU classes were held in these chicken coops. And the Lowry Child Care Center was there for about 10 years or more. And right now, 2 of the buildings are just used to store Meadowbrook Theater's props, and then our headquarters is part of this building. So we're working on changing how this building is being used, or the site is being used, and I'll give you an update on that. But so 2009 and 10 was when we started. OU dug up the lawn for us, a little small plot, quite small by today's standards, and it was really hard to cultivate because of all the grass, but we raised some vegetables by 2010. And the idea was that we would sell our produce to Chartwells, which worked for about 3 weeks, and then they reneged on their promise, but we didn't have a lot to sell them anyway. But basically it became evident, and I knew this was going to happen anyway, that even for this small garden, it's hard to maintain the garden without some sort of structure. And we have a constant turnover of students, as you're well aware. And so it happened that we were able to get a grant from something called Learn and Serve in America that allowed us to start our academic program, which really forms a backdrop for making sure that the farm continues. And so this grant was all about developing our STEM workforce for the 21st century. And so they required, to get this money, they required that we develop some courses in teaching STEM disciplines through the theme of food, which worked really well for us. And we called the area at the time the Sustainability and Creativity Zone. We were expecting to develop it into all kinds of ways. But one of the most interesting things we did early on, because we were required to partner with other STEM institutes, we partnered with Lawrence Tech and their architecture program, and we had all kinds of really cool ideas about how the site could be developed and the landscape. And this program went on for a couple of years. Unfortunately, we've never had a chance to do any of the green refurbishments that was suggested, but it was a really fun program to collaborate on. And so as part of this sustainability, what we call the Sustainability and Creativity Zone, we saw this as a hub for local foods, lots of interdisciplinary and experiential problem solving, very much active learning, and a lot of student-led initiatives. Now, at that time, that was very unusual. Now, especially because of you folks, there's a lot more student-led initiatives now, but this was like a pretty rare thing when we first started. So we had our first classes in summer 2011 and still sending some food to the dorms, but Chartwells, but things fell through with Chartwells. But these are sort of a general timeline of how we've developed since then. Our first summer classes in 2011, we had our first farm stand, much smaller than this, in 2012. We got a grant to build a hoop house in 2014, which is really an important contribution, because that allowed us to have year-round classes. And then now we have an urban ag minor. We got funding to extend that hoop house, and Student Congress was very involved in that hoop house extension. And now we have a partnership with the pantry, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. This was just a list of our classes. I'm not really promoting the classes today, but I'm telling you, we have a whole variety of classes out at the farm, some organic farming, but things like food systems, but also collaboratives with a number of other programs that use it in different ways. We do engage all parts of campus in the academics, but also, as I want to point out, in other ways besides academics. So the idea of teaching STEM through food, it's amazing how many ways we could do this. But these are some of the other classes that have used the farm, but many others for project demonstrations. And we have students doing their internships or research projects out at the farm. And then now we have a minor in urban agriculture and agroecology, and students go on to do some really interesting things with that in the community. But I want to give you sort of a take home on the classes because we might think, well, this is academics, Student Congress shouldn't be worried about this, but really it's the student success and how they learn. And many students really find that this whole idea of teaching through food and hands-on learning, which we do, is very useful to their academic progress. And this is a typical example of somebody from our organic farming class saying, I learned how to learn in this class and learn more science than any of my other lecture classes, because more and more students really appreciate active learning. Not that we're trying to train everybody to be a farmer. We use farming to train them in other areas, such as this very high impact learning for lifelong skills, okay? Interdisciplinary problem solving, system thinking, and about real world problems. And this is what employers are looking for today. So part of the academics gets you ready for the type of workplace that you'll encounter after you leave OU. And also it's really fun learning, because low stress learning, really, because it's a classroom without walls. Okay, we're almost never inside, sometimes, but not very often. And just doing things in groups out on picnic tables and things like that. And people find it very stress relieving, actually. There's sort of what we call nature therapy that really comes into play while students are learning. And there's so much teamwork that goes on during all of our activities out there. And I'm sure you're all aware of how important the ability to do teamwork is even in school, but also when you get out of school and in your own communities and becoming leaders. Now, the student farm has become part of the campus culture, especially because of our farm stand. So people have always looked forward to our farm stand, and we were happy to revive it after COVID. It was really hard during COVID not to have the farm stand, although there are fewer people on campus in the summer, so we haven't been doing the summer farm stand, which we really miss. But we have it in the fall. So, and the student club is very involved in helping to man the farm stand, as well as the students from our classes. But we started out with a little table outside of Hannah Hall in 2011 with just a few vegetables. Now we also offer what's called farm shares that people can subscribe to. And then in 2019, I think, we partnered with the Golden Grizzlies Pantry to start what we call the Grizz Greens program. And we started out by giving vouchers that anybody could get from the pantry and then use them. It's partly at the farm stand, but also we had a lot, in non-farm stand student season, especially now that we don't have it in the summer, we had a lot of vegetables that we didn't have the whole idea, our idea is to grow for students. But so this was a way when the pantry became part of our campus, it gave us a way that we could facilitate getting our produce to our students, which is why we started the farm in the first place. So internships, community engagement, service learning from, lots of groups on campus. People from off campus like to come and be involved in different activities. Certainly the day in the fall, I forgot the name of it now. I should know it very well. But different groups, sometimes clubs have a service learning requirement or volunteer requirement. This is a great place to do it because it's a lot of fun, and you get to meet other people and see what's going on. So the other thing I want to mention, because this is going to become important, and something I'm going to say later, is when we built our hoop house, we built it ourselves. Okay. It was students in the classes. We took the whole summer to build it. 6 different classes were involved. And we also had groups come over and help us. So it was really quite the experience. So we have a lot of ownership in our hoop house. Okay. And it's been invaluable now because we have such erratic climate, as we've noticed in the past, this winter and spring has been awful. So we more and more are relying on this protected environment. And then I have to say that we hire our students, and it's a great job to have. And so it gives them leadership and teamwork training, and they often go out and do some really good things in the community. And I have to point, Caitlin here is now the director of the hospital farm at Trinity Health down in Pontiac, and she is involved in teaching residents and docs how to prescribe vegetables, and really making some revolutionary changes. So I like to see what people do when they leave our farm. Then Growing Grizzlies, which used to be Student Organic Farmers at OU, which is a mouthful, is periodically active. It depends on who the leader is, but we love the things that they can do. We've always had an annual Thanksgiving sale in making organic pies over at the dorm. Loves to have us come over and do our baking. Cool potlucks and events at the farm, Halloween parties quite often. And we've had various awards for the club. The other thing I want to mention is anybody that's involved with the farm, whether it's in classes or volunteer activities, pretty often you get these fringe benefits called fresh veggies, so it's a good chance to check them out. And then another really good benefit that is kind of like an intangible is that by being a classroom without walls, it's just a great place to relax R&R. And even something like weeding can be very zen. This guy's weeding in stress-free zone. Okay, we've had yoga out there, but just being there and working with the land is so important for reducing stress. And we're so cognizant of the issues with student stress these days. So the more ways that we can use the farm in that context, the happier I am. And the other sort of other intangible is it really is, you get this sense of place and community when you're involved with the farm. So it's really something special when you have more than, say, one day of involvement. I also want to say that we are involved with the community in a lot of different ways. This is a field day that we had at the farm. And we had a research and a field day a couple of times. And we love to have people from outside the community come to visit the farm. And oftentimes, we haven't had as much of this lately, but we like to, whenever we can, bring kids to the farm. But we also have had an affiliation with the Baldwin Center's garden. So, whenever we can inspire young kids to be involved, gardening is kind of like dinosaurs are for enticing kids to get interested in science, and many other aspects of gardening can engage kids. We also, I don't know if you've seen this or are aware of this, but we were able to build a small garden in the courtyard of Math Science, call it the Mini Hands Garden, largely operated by the club, that we use for math core. And the kids really have a lot of fun doing this in the summer camp. Early on, we haven't had a chance to do this as much. I mentioned the Baldwin Center, but early on, for probably 5 years until we got too big to be able to and too busy to do it, we were very involved with the garden at the Baldwin Center, and also taking a youth group to training them and taking them to farmers markets. And we were quite involved with that. Like to do more of it. Our students go on to do many things in community engagements as a project or as a job. This is some examples of them in action. Also, we have had many opportunities to be involved in inclusion in many ways. So this was the Kennedy School in Pontiac that we worked with at the Baldwin Center, but they also came to visit us. And then the Center for Autism and the School of Business developed a project with called Extraordinary Ventures, where it was part of a business proposal, and we trained them to grow microgreens, which they sold at our farmstead, and then they moved off campus, and now they have have this business going for the Center for Autism. So I want to actually show you that the Student Organic Farm is what some organizations, I think is a business term really, a boundary organization. We have, you might say it's only academics or it's only a staff and faculty, but it's a really important part of student life. We also have research going on there, part of recreation and part of community. So we have a sort of interaction with all academic units and different clubs and everything. So I like to have people understand that. And also now, for coming up to current day from our history, OU put together a strategic plan. And if you look at the goals, pretty much every single one of them is something that the student farm can contribute to, whether it's student success by fostering a really nice, active, and stress-free learning environment, research, community engagement, and inclusion. So I'm really happy that we can be on the map in that way. And then the Student Congress always was trying to help us get a sign. For up until this past year, there's been no sign for the farm, which has been pretty frustrating. But now we have one, and that is because the whole place got a name. You may or we haven't had a rollout of this, so you're among the first to know this. There's been a change. The Board of Trustees actually approved this, whereas in the past years, they were trying to sell the property and shut us down. Really, it was quite a battle. But now we're there as an actual site called LORAX, Laboratory for Outdoor Research, Agriculture, Conservation, and Sustainability. And the student farm is really the anchor for that. And we're in the process of really developing and getting fundraising to really make this a center that's going to make a difference. If you go along Adams Road, you don't even know you're going by Oakland University, except where the sign for Meadowbrook is. So people have missed 2,500 cars a day have missed the information that we're doing all this active learning right there on Adams Road. So I want to address you, Student Congress people, for all the good things that you have done for us in the past and hopefully in the future. One of the things, this was about 5 or 7 years ago, I think, is that you gave us a commercial cooler. We just up until that time just had little refrigerators, and if we were getting ready for a farm stand, instead of just this amount, I just took this today, but this thing is jam-packed before we go to farm stand. And without this kind of storage, we really lose a lot of produce, and we can only grow and sell as much as we can harvest and store. So this has been a huge asset for us when Student Congress approved this. Also, you guys have wonderfully provided us with a locally manufactured wonderful storage shed, cute too, that houses a lot of equipment, some of which you've also purchased for us, and our hoses and storage. So we actually had a little about this big of a little shed that OU provided us. It's made out of plastic and fell apart. So it has really, really helped us a lot. Last summer, some of you were out for a volunteer day, and at various other times I'm going to show you, Student Congress has been involved. They always have been involved in some of our activities, most years, I should say. Most importantly, when Andrew was president, he helped he was in my permaculture class, and I didn't even ask. We found that when we built the hoop house extension, we couldn't grow in the ground because the ground had been compacted. And so he on his own came through the Student Congress and said, hey, we can help you here. So it was really Student Congress money that allowed us to build these raised beds. And this is no cheap project. This was a $30,000 project to get this done. It was not, this all made out of cedar. And then here's Student Congress helping to do it. Classes were working on it, all kinds of volunteers, even high school kids. And so we're growing greens in there. It's really been a great asset. So really thank you for that. Now, last year, you all gave us some money to approve some money, which we have now for a second hoop house, which is going to go in this spring. Okay, this is the original one extended over here. And so we're just in the process of getting ready to order a second one, which we're calling the Salad Palace, because we really want to focus on the Grizz Greens and the pantry for what we grow here. We can't always do that for our general farming, but we want to grow many more like tomatoes, cucumbers, and the finger food that students can use. So that's going in here. We're hopefully having a community build in early June. If all goes right, we're still working on paperwork, and hopefully you'll be involved in that. And it's a lot of fun to do. So I'm going to stop there. Unless Miriam, you want me to do this. Miriam was talking to me about some things that you might be able to provide this year. So I'm going to stop here and not talk about it unless asked. So I really do appreciate everything that Student Congress has done over the years. And And so thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hinton. I think we're gonna have Director Eskander explain a couple of things moving forward when we do that bill later on, but does anybody have any questions for Dr. Legislator Lunger?
Organic
Can we
farming,
use the microphone?
your organic farming classes, when do they start? And are there any openings? How often do they meet?
I didn't catch it. Was somebody talking to me?
I guess the organic farming classes, when do they start and how often do they meet?
I'm still not, who are you talking?
She's wondering when are the organic farming classes supposed to happen on the farm?
Well, let me give you, let me get the screen again. So I put this last, so. So we have organic farming classes in the summer. And that slide, something happened to it. But so this summer we have organic farming, a 4-credit and a 1-credit lab. I like people to take it together. It meets Tuesday and Thursday mornings. It's really a great experience. It's not just about how to farm, but you start out with bare ground, and by the time the summer's over, you've grown up a whole bunch of vegetables and done a lot of problem solving along the way and had a lot of fun. And then we have Bio 3332, which is the number for the organic farming lab, which actually you can take it 3 times in the summer, fall, and winter because we do different things each time. So that's another one credit. And also the prereqs are for all of these are just any kind of a natural science class. And if you happen to be a dancer or something and never had one, I'll waive the requirement because we can work without all those prereqs. So there's a lot of activity going on in the fall, and then in the winter, a lot of things we do in the winter, which we're doing right now, is growing a lot of our transplants for the spring and doing experiments. And we're just now getting back into the hoop house, and this crazy weather isn't helping us on that. I also teach a permaculture class. The ENV students in particular really like this one. This is a really unusual kind of class that rarely is offered in academic settings, very interdisciplinary, and we do a lot of systems thinking and problem solving and field trips and working with our hands on, sometimes if we're lucky, doing straw bale construction ourselves, but also visiting. This is a straw bale constructed school in Oxford. We're on the green roof. It's very sustainability. So it's a whole range of things that goes beyond biology, but it's very interdisciplinary. That meets in the summer once a week in the evening. Be Wednesdays this year. And then in the fall, I have a food systems class, which is part lecture, but also uses a farm part of the time, that goes through what we call seed to plate and then plate to health of the people and the environment in terms of how our food is grown. And we do a lot of projects and things in that class. And yeah, so, and then of course, we have worked with a lot of other classes. We had graphic design coming out with a project for us, and lots of interesting ways that you can actually be involved with the farm in other classes too. So we've had engineering research projects out there doing solar and things like that. So it's always something.
And
Thank you so much.
does the PCO work closely with the organic farms? I'm a member of the PCO.
I'm not.
Yes, I think I can answer this as well. She was just asking about the Polynor Conservation Organization and how they work with the farm. And just for simplicity's sake, we can have others follow up on this a little bit later, because we are running short on time. But yes, I believe that they do work together.
I'm sorry.
At least there's
It's not coming
overlap
to. So the question has to do with sustainability and conservation. Is that what we're saying? Something like that?
No, it's about the pollinator conservation organization. I'm gonna have somebody follow up on that.
Okay,
We gotta move on, but thank you so
Okay.
much, Dr. Hanson, for being here. We really appreciate it.
thank you. I really enjoyed talking to you. So,
Let's go. Okay. Next up, we have another guest speaker. We have Matt Murray here, who is the president of SPD, and he's going to come to speak a bit on some funding situations and the questions that many of us had. So, with that, you've got the floor. And if there's anything you'd like me to present, you can go.
Yep, perfect. I don't have anything to present exactly, but I think you guys did end up getting the budgets.
Yep.
Okay, so you're welcome to pass those around if you'd like.
Okay.
It's somewhat useful. Recently, I just added a cost per student analysis to that. But we'll be looking at it after that. I have a little bit of a prepared speech before we get into that. So, hello everyone. My name is Matthew Murray, and I'm the president of the program board. Some of you have familiar faces. I've seen some of you at SPD events as well. Perhaps anyone here attended SPD events? Go ahead. Of course. Yep. So everyone kind of knows SPD and what we do. And I do stand here today not just as a representative of SPD, but also as a representative of some, not all, but some of the thousands of students that SPD impacts every semester. I also am a student. I am also impacted by the decisions which are made here at OUSC and by SACPAC. So anyways, my goal is to demonstrate the effective, efficient, and responsible use of student money as student program work. With that, it should be noted right here and right now that we completely understand the needs of club sports and their goal to fund more students to be able to participate in club sports activities. We recognize that. We recognize the need there. And it's been discussed thoroughly, not only at SACPAC, but also with the SPD board, some of which are present. We are also grateful here at Student Program Board to the many volunteers which we've ever received, many from club sports, as well as regular volunteers who attend our SPD events. So, lastly, it should be noted that many participants of SPD events are also members of the club. So, they are involved with everyone here on campus. So, my first and greatest point is SPD's impact on campus. So SPD is one of the few organizations on campus that brings together every kind of student. We have housing students, we have campus students, we have students from near and far, including many international students, and we bring a wide and diverse event programming to each student. So if there's something that one person likes or another person likes, they can attend our events. Alongside these students which we serve, we also serve other pieces of campus, so departments, organizations, local businesses, alumni, faculty, and staff, all of which are impacted in one way or another.
Yeah, sorry.
No, 100%, that's fine. We also impact alumni, faculty, staff, and registered student organizations, which get funding through things like SAFB. But I should note that nearly all of the collaborations which we have done this year with SPD and RSOs have not used SAFB funding. They have been independently funded through SPD, and we just bring people along and we allow students to be able to immerse themselves in even more organizations which are specialized in particular events. Here are some examples. Gaming Guild. At our tailgate, we work with Grizz Gaming. We've worked with Alternative Spring Break to a lesser extent. Sigma Pi, which was funded by SAFB for Carnival. Queens Collective, Ballroom, Vintage Club, Esports, and we also collaborate with SAFAC organizations, WXU, SDP, RLA. We interact with housing and every other SAFAC in haunted hallways. So even departments, Recwell and Athletics. We do have a wide reach on campus, and we are very proud of it. SPD's mission is as follows. The Student Program Board strives to enhance student life by providing high quality and diverse programs, activities, and events for the Oakland University community. Not just students, everyone. And we're, again, very proud that we're able to reach more than just students. With this, SPV is funded through SAPAC, and that is funded through the student activity fee. How many of you have been introduced to this concept so far? Okay, so I'll mention it again anyways. There is a student activity fee, which is $27.50. Each student pays into this every semester, so $27.50 for each enrolled student on campus. With that, so SPE receives 27% of this $27.50. SPE summer and fall allocation, which you should have on the sheets, that make it all the way around.
No.
We've got it shared online.
Oh, moving on, wonderful. I have two spare as well, if anybody needs one, which was from the one second. SPE summer and fall allocation was $149,000, of which we had planned on using $142,000. These are rough numbers, but they're just about the same on them. And it should be noted that we had anticipated getting around $145,000 in the allocation, but it's a little bit higher. I should say the student activities fee. We actually spent only 126 of these 142 or $149,000. And we're also very proud of that because it is keeping us under budget and it is allowing us more wiggle room for future events. In particular, the student activity fee is lower in the winter semester. So in the fall, we have more students enrolled on campus, so we end up getting more money. And then in the winter time, when the money is a little bit less, we're able to use some of the extra in the future. So, as well as for other larger scale events in the future. Yes, okay. And then it should also be noted that our current balance in our account is $147,000. This is before the next student activity fee has been released to us. So that's a rough estimate from 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. So it could be a little bit less now as we continue paying for things. I also heard that there might have been a little bit of concern about the Hump Day series. Is this true? Did this occur at a previous meeting at NAS, anything like that? No. Anyways, either way, I'm still gonna mention it. One of our largest events which we do here is Hump Days. So it's actually bigger than Carnival or Casino Night and impacts a multitude of students on campus here. So for those of you who don't know, who doesn't know about Hump Days? Okay, cool. I love to do this also, okay, don't worry. So Hump Days are weekly pop-up events. Every Wednesday, we pop up on campus at a random time, random place, not necessarily random time or place, but it's a different place each week. And we end up being able to service different students each week. People who don't know about SPV, just like yourself, or not SPV, but Hump Days, just like yourself, they might run into Hump Days and we can talk about it. And we end up giving out students, giving them food, for example, or little knickknacks, and each one is budgeted at $400 exactly. There sometimes has been wiggle room where we go a little bit higher because we have so many under budget ones, but overall, they impact roughly 100 to 200 students per Hump Day. And it serves many aspects, like I said, serving a diverse set of students and reaching students that don't know. So in the fall semester, we did 13 Hump Days, and these Hump Days alone interacted with and benefited 2,026 students. So that's a large number. And we were able to do this at $2.47 per student. So each interaction that we made with the student was only $2.47, which is by far our lowest cost per student, which is a reference that we use to see how exactly we perform. The cost per student means if it's lower, we can do more for students in the future. That's the idea. And we do have a lot of different costs for students, which we'll get into it. Same thing with winter. We allocated $118,000, almost $119,000, and we expected to receive $113,000. So we actually went over our expected allocation because we had a little extra money sitting behind last semester. And we've only spent $83,000 of that so far. One of our biggest expenses is payroll. And I'm going to recognize it here. With payroll, we are required to allocate for every hour that we can possibly use, not the number of hours we actually use. So eventually these will always be a lot lower. So you can see we allocated $32,000. This is winter semester, $32,000 there. but we only spent so far $13,000. So it's just a requirement that we have to be sure that we stay fiscally responsible to the student. With this though, in the fall, overall, so this is exclusive of hump days, might I add, but also inclusive of our payroll. Our cost per student in total of the 7,099 students we impacted was $17.70. That's still very, very good. And we usually strive for a $15 to $20 perfect range, and that was before inflation, $15 to $20 per student on that. So, and that usually is not inclusive of things like payroll. Yeah, and I've also heard SPD be a sales pitch just as much as any other organization here on campus. And the things they mentioned, Carnival Casino Night, Hump Days, and a concert. And it should be noted that we won't be doing concerts anytime soon. We've been trying to rein in our budget a little bit, so we hope to find a way to work it out where we don't have to pay as much. But usually when it comes to a concert, it was anywhere from $100 to $125,000, $150,000. So back when we had 20,000 students here, that was much more possible. Whereas right now we are adjusting to the fact that we just don't really have that kind of money to spend right now. However, it would be beneficial both to the campus community, to outside the campus community, and then also as a sales pitch to prospective students, which they still use despite that we don't do it. So, which I'm kind of glad. So we can go through the budget here real quick. I'm going to spend probably 20 minutes talking. Is that all right? If I keep on talking? Okay. So with this here, I can go through some of the events. And again, the one that I have here, I made it up today. I would have had these proper ones printed out if I had known earlier that I was going to be here. So my apologies for not having that printed out to you guys. So we have here, can we go to the summer and fall, please? That should be good. I think the flip side. Yeah, perfect. So I know it's kind of hard to see here, but all the ones in green there, those are the ones that we did. So we have our hump days, which I already mentioned, that was at $2.47 per student, where we impacted over 2,000 students. Our first event of the semester, the fall semester, 469 students impacted at $8 a student. Carnival, 1,800 students impacted at $23.94 per student, which is a little bit higher, but for a big scale event like this, you know, it's worth it in the long run. People enjoy this event. It should also be noted that our attendance numbers are, for the most part, perfect, nearly perfect. Some of them are estimates though. So for example, Carnival, we say an 1,800 estimate. Some people believe that's a little bit high, some people believe it's a little bit low. So in the end, we kind of just meet in the middle in our discussions with our advisors. So to be sure that we have a relatively accurate number, to be sure that we know how many students we're serving, and which also leads us to future opportunities to understand what we might need to predict for the future. So anyway, we'll keep on going through here. Our field day was a flop. I'm not afraid to admit that. We had only 7 students show up, and it was because something else was going on at the same time. But that was a $75 cost per student. That was bad, but we only spent $530. So in the end, with SPE, we make a lot of mistakes and we learn from it. You know, whether it be a timing issue or anything else, we actually have a new policy which was instituted last year, where we make write-ups about each event so that future people who come to the SPE know and understand what exactly each event needs, the things that went wrong and the things that went right. So there's that. What else we got here? Journal order meetings, only $800. Service 257 students. Rocket League 24. Silent Disco roughly 200. Bowling night roughly 90. Grizz Hunt 327. Haunted Hallways 230, which was a staff act event. So SPB headed it up, but we all participated. We had a Day of the Dead Hump Day, which is on here, and that was 230. I might have my numbers off over here, but anyways, there's a lot of impacts that we've had, and our best cost per student is our hump days, and our worst cost per student was flying. But overall, we've done quite a lot here. So, same with winter, our events here. We've got here our holidays again. This one's not quite as accurate right now. As of last week, SPD had impacted 5,000 students this semester. And we anticipate hopefully another 1,000 by the end of it. Which is probably asking for a lot, but we're looking forward to that. Yeah, I can go through this if you want. Is there any preference on that before I continue the speech? We can talk about this later too. Okay. All right, so kind of to wrap things up here, just to make this clear. You know, a vote no on this bill that you're all looking at here is not a yes to SPD contributing another percent. SPD is hesitant to give away this last percent. I'm sure we'll be discussing this here in a little bit. But 2% is still a lot. And if you were to vote no, it'd be preventing club sports from getting a 2% increase, which is still a lot of money. It should also be noted that SAFB did give up their percent. And despite initially agreeing to it and then disagreeing to it, which this is not combative at all. I hope you know, I'm just explaining the situation. It was then said that, okay, it might be conditional that we give up this 1%, but in the end it was not. And SPD still did not give up a percent, but SAFB did willingly give up a percent, as well as all of Staff Act willingly giving up a percent from the special projects. So the special projects fund would be defunded here. So the Staff Act bylaws state that 3 votes in the negative will deny a motion to reallocate these funds from one place to another. Like I said, we have 27%. So in this case, it would have been about 27% to 26% for SPV, and then an additional percent for public schools. So we had at least 3 no votes in that moment there, and that's why we did not vote on that. We probably should have done. But with this, if it were to come back with some kind of recommendation that SPD give up this last percent, I don't really believe it would make much of a difference. And what I am trying to say is the biggest shame here is that there was not more time for the student body to see this bill. That's one of the bigger concerns here. These conversations did begin in the summer, and we recognize that we're all students, we all get busy. But there was an entire year almost now, let's say like even 8 months, where these conversations had started but didn't finish. But because of these 2 weeks that we have here on the OUSD side of things, all the students who might be impacted by this decision have less time to voice their opinions on the matter. And obviously, I also stand here on Good Friday, on Easter weekend, so, which we're all here, but I'm sure a lot of students would rather be at home, you know, enjoying themselves with their family. So, even myself here, but, in the end, students who are both for and against this bill both do not have the ability to speak up right now in the same sense, with only 2 weeks. Some sports people can't be in for a month, or even a couple more weeks beyond this, and, that could benefit them in the long run for this kind of election that we have coming up here very soon, which these things will also be possibly included in. And I didn't even see the bill until like 5:30 last week, so a week ago, just same time. So, just to be sure that it was up to the standards of the whole Staff Act. So, with all that in mind, I do appreciate the ability to be able to speak up here. Ready for questions. So.
I have a first question to clarify something you had mentioned about
Sure.
the Staff Act vote. There was nothing that we voted on that was anybody expressed it. So
No, what I'm saying is that we had done an informal vote, if you recall, before the regular vote, in which we had all said in the discussion that it would really pass. So I know there was WXU, SLLB, and then possibly SVD.
is that referring to as beginning of
Correct. Yeah.
I don't recall.
Okay.
We would only be voting or discussing things at that point. That those individual organizations had agreed to. Or would.
Well, I guess you're right. There had been an informal vote. We had discussed it and said that it wouldn't pass.
Okay, so not.
Yeah, you're correct. Yes, there was no nay vote. Make that very clear. There was no nay vote on SPD getting 1%. Although looking back on it now, that probably should have happened, just to make it clear that this would not be happening. So, yes, go ahead.
I'll move here. First of all, appreciate you being here.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
So I guess a couple things as you were talking. I haven't been to a lot of SPB events, but I have been to a couple. The Live Bank karaoke was amazing.
Thank you.
And so, but I'm also a part of club sports, and I think the thing that I keep going back towards as I'm kind of trying to understand the larger conversation that's going on, is that my opinion at this point is that most students, let me rephrase that, all students are not going to feel the effects of this reallocation, except for the people in club sports. Because I think that SPB does a really good job, just like we do, of putting out so many events per year. And unless you guys were like, oh, okay, we're not going to do the carnival next year, something like that, like, or the casino, right?
Sure, if you will.
Then like students wouldn't really notice. Whereas with club sports, I think it's really an opportunity that is a significant boost for every percentage that they get to help students. And I think one thing that most people don't usually bring up with club sports is that I think SPB and Student Congress do a great job of helping to retain students and making sure that students feel heard and that they can feel part of campus life. But club sports helps to bring students into the school. Similarly to athletics, not to the same degree. But like I came to the school for hockey, which most people like wouldn't understand because it's like, oh, it's just a club sport. Like, why would you care? But I did. Like, I was looking at other schools, and I ended up being able to get in contact with the coach here, and that's why I came here. And so it brings in revenue too for the school. Obviously, club sports are going out, into the community too, and kind of spreading the name for Oakland University. So I think that has to also be, acknowledged to an extent. But I'm curious, do you think that it would be reasonable for SPB to kind of match that SAFB percentage? Obviously, this is the question that's being asked. But I'm just kind of curious to hear why or why, if you would.
Sure, so there's a couple things there. I'll answer your last question first, kind of as to why we think it might be better for the money to stay with us. And it's purely on a value basis. So I was looking at some of the club sports numbers. One second. I was looking at these numbers, and I was looking at like dues and things like that, and I completely understand how expensive it is. I'm not a big sports guy myself, but I look at these numbers and they are deterrents. Certainly, I mean, 100% they're all deterrents, which is a shame. However, on like a cost per student, like value basis, the way I see it is with that money at SPB, it is making it to the students and it's able to interact with more students, kind of like more of a volume basis, right? And I'm sure if these numbers were to be lowered a little bit, these dues, you probably have a little bit more volume in club sports, right? But when we're able to impact a student at $15, per student each time they interact with us, we see that percentage as being a lot of interaction. Let me do the math here. Could someone do 8,500 divided by? I don't know what's that. You mind? Yeah, 8,500 divided by 15. Okay, so in theory, that could be another 500-ish students impacted by an event. That isn't exactly the case because even if we still did the event, we probably still get attendance. But to your other point about people noticing, they have noticed a little bit. I know that we have a great impact upon club sports to have more of that money, but on the opposite end of it, we've got a lot of programs here. A lot of programs that students do enjoy, and we will bring it back next year just because we're sitting on enough money. We got a little bit concerned initially when the minimum wage was raised to $15 an hour. We didn't really anticipate that, so we kind of really just reeled in for a minute, a little bit worried, and now we can kind of come back. But things like Hell Weekends is an expensive event. These trips that we do, which we subsidize, that's one of them in particular. Certainly, concerts are not entirely doable right now at a full budget, but we could use that money, things like that, and it's stuff that we are talking about constantly. And we're trying to see ways to be sure that we can impact the most students as possible given the circumstances. And so again, I guess I just go back to the value per student in the end.
If I could respond to
Sure.
that, and also everybody else. So I guess one thing that I wanted to distinguish is like, so the two events that I went to, but like I said, the live band karaoke, I was locked in, I was there the entire time, fully enjoyed it. And then I also went to the, I'm blanking on the name, the other like concert, but the, shoot, what's it called? The quiet concert.
Oh, Silent Disco.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And that I was at. And so, I think it's also important that like, just because there's a student that comes in, signs in and says like, yeah, and then, you know, there also is like, is that the number of students that are staying the entire time?
No,
Or is that-
no, it's, students who come in and, you know, take things and participate to an extent, and we don't track the number of people leaving, we just.
Sure. So I,
That's fair, sure.
so I think keeping that in mind, that some of the money that goes to club sports too does end up in events that those club sports host, because club sports has more requirements than pretty much any other organization, just in terms of things that they have to do. And so, for example, the table tennis club, we just hosted a tournament. We had like 40 people attend.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good. And so I think it's important too to kind of look at it there that, you know, obviously with the number of students going down and you guys getting less, you know, that definitely is a factor. But in terms of where could that $3,000 go for this, is kind of how I look. Is that going to be the difference between you guys being able to do a concert, not being able to do a concert? I don't think so.
Right, that's fair. Another thing, just for all of our sakes here, just, I wish I had more information on this, but I don't. Again, I think part of it was just timing. There wasn't enough time to really broadcast this information to SAFAC, but regarding the policies which club sports uses to be sure that students can get access to that money in clubs. So, you know, with table tennis, for example, that was all self-funded. It was that fundraising for those. The Anthony just bowling, so, were you at bowling? No, okay, I was there at bowling, but, I know there's a lot of self-funding that occurs too, just because of how difficult it is to reach that money. And I really do, I recognize and appreciate the hard work that these organizations put in to be able to do what they do. So just as much as us, the ability to be able to fundraise and do those stuff.
Stick around.
What Lance said. Talk about impact, but also reframe this conversation as well. You said that 1% wouldn't make a difference.
I didn't say that. I said that in the end, it will impact more students better at SPP. That's what I said.
Okay, so my question is, what difference would 1% make to our largest student funded org, to a club sports team that for most of these club sports athletes have to pay for equipment out of pocket? Lance, I know that you guys have to pay for your equipment out of pocket as well. Some of your hockey equipment, equestrian's another one.
Full team was just an idea space.
Yeah, exactly. And so when we talk about an impact, what difference would 1% make to our largest student-funded org, to a club sports organization that have to pay for equipment out of pocket, but also are currently running at a budget?
Well, I'm just gonna look at it like this. I'll kind of respond to it in this particular form here. With that money, it would probably benefit, I don't know, I'm not in club sports, right? So this is kind of getting the hypothetical land here, but, I look at these numbers here and $4,000 or $8,000 isn't going to make a dent in any of these dues. I recognize the fact that there is a need for money. I also recognize the fact that SPD will get better value out of that through our events. It will impact more students. And a wide variety of students might add. Like I said earlier, it is also club sports students that come here that volunteer with us. It is also SAFE organizations which come here and talk to us and work with us and also attend our events. So,
Could you give me specific examples on how giving up 1% would impact SPP?
Sure, it would be the difference between one or two events. And our smaller events are perhaps more important than our larger events because those are the events which impact a diverse group of people just as much as a carnival would. And we've already been lowering the budget on carnival, on casino night, on everything. We have lowered across the board, but we're still cutting events.
I did a little bit of digging.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
looking at June of last year compared to what you guys projected to spend this year, increased by at least $57,000.
Can you repeat that?
Looking at June of last year compared to what you guys are projecting to spend this year, your account balance would have increased by at least $57,000.
Correct, in the hopes that we'd be able to do something bigger in the fall. If there is an intent behind that. Correct.
And then my final question is, you said it was the difference between one and two events. How many events do you guys have each year?
Good question. On average, anywhere from 15 to 20 a semester.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
President Murphy?
Could you explain a little bit more for everybody how you go about calculating how many students come to your events?
Yes, absolutely. So it's very simple. There's not really a better way to do it except when it comes to certain full-scale events. So in the case of like a casino night, for example, not only do we click in students from the very beginning, we also utilize Oakland Center data. So they're able to somehow track. Yeah, I don't know how exactly it works, but they're able to look at how many students are able to come in here through different data analysis means. But with other events, so like, I don't know how it works. I can get you the numbers off if you'd like. But again, I'm not gonna say I don't know, but with other things, we usually just have a clicker, right? And the clicker is mostly accurate, right? We click one student at a time. Sometimes we put down the clicker and forget about it, and we have to come back and we have to discuss. With carnival, that's very, very hard to gauge. Usually we look at photos and things like that, and we talk with our advisors and see what they believe the numbers to be. And again, usually it's a compromise between someone like myself, lower number, and others who might use a little bit of a higher number to be sure that we have an accurate count. But there's also other factors to include. Because again, when it isn't a contained event, so like an event in here, for example, we can click one at a time at our table, whereas with an event at Carnival, we buy this much food, how quickly did it go? That kind of thing. So in the end, the numbers that we get are relatively accurate. Yes, at home days particularly, very accurate. Thank you.
I just want to clarify, so you had said earlier, you've given a couple different statistics with that, or the numbers on how many students that you've impacted. Is there any system that you use to ensure that those are different students, or are they likely the same students?
That's an excellent question too. In interaction, I use the word interactions for the sake of the fact that you can't always tell the difference between one student and another. We at SPP, like, how many of you have gone up to a table, for example, that maybe RLA or something, and you got to sign in real quick, and then you would have been there for 10 seconds or a couple minutes, or you want to get inside there, then whatever, and it's kind of annoying that you have to fill it out, right? It is annoying. So the whole idea is that we just put people in to make it fast and efficient. When you have 200 people in line, we don't want to have people all scanning through this. That's a nightmare at Carnival, where we actually have to have liability waivers signed. And that's another indicator of our Carnival success. How many people actually filled out these waivers, but now everyone fills out the waivers and you can't really tell the difference. But, what's the question?
I was just wondering if there was any system, since you're giving out the number of
Yes.
how many students you've impacted, if there's any way to tell whether these are individual students or students that have been.
There is, and there's no real effective means without it being perhaps beneficial to us, but perhaps negative to the student and to the success of the event in the moment. Again, the whole point is to get people in there as fast as possible so that they can enjoy the event rather than waiting in line for an hour to come to an event. We're at scale, so.
I fully agree.
Yeah.
To get clarity. Dr. Nagin?
I'm gonna hop over there. So actually, I am loud enough that I usually can be heard on this one anyway. So, oh wow, it's loud and clear. I guess to start, I'm I mean, you're seeing me at a bunch of SPB events. I go to a lot of them. I enjoyed them thoroughly. And I think that you're correct in saying that you are a very, there's a reason why you and the SAFB are the highest funded staff actors. You're easily the most visible. You look at a poster board and half of it's SPB posters, half of it's club posters. So it makes sense. That being said, I do think that because of that, it would make sense to continue to scale together. 1% cut from SAFB is cutting funding from potentially hundreds of student orgs. It's the difference between being able to get food for 50 people and having to scale back your thing a little bit. And also focusing on the numbers a little bit, I guess I disagree a little bit with your statement of looking at students like on a value per student basis, because and I'm not trying to make SVP catch rates. Look at SVP. They don't necessarily have a lot of events, and they've got a budget. And because of the amount of events that they hold compared to something like you, they probably have a lot higher cost per student at their events. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. Their events are fun. Their events are appeal to a more niche demographic of people who want to be involved in video production. And I think that there's a place for that at this university. I don't think that we need to be looking at austerity measures to determine how best to send around our money. I mean, again, I bring up the example of the pool cues that were just denied. I hear people, I've got to close the door to the office house because the sound of people playing pool gets a little annoying, and those pool cues receive a lot of wear and tear. But unfortunately, because of budget constraints, Club Sports was unable to get new pool cues, and those are going to eventually wear out and break. And I guess I'm failing to see how, again, as somebody who loves a lot of the SPB events, I do think that there is a room in the budget for 1%, especially since I know you've employed a lot more ways to be thrifty about reusing props or maybe printing out fewer handouts, which I know you've already done. I'm not saying to do it more. I'm just saying you've already made. I mean, Student Congress has made ways to try and cut back our spending a little bit. You'll look at our budget and it's whoa, that's a scary number. And then you look at the actual spending, it's way lower. We're both, I mean, you see that in your budget as well. I guess to wrap up, my question is, I lost my train of thought in bringing up the point there. I really am a congressman, I suppose. But my question is that what value? I'm sorry, I'm totally blanking on the language. Noted a little bit more in depth. Come back to me, I guess.
Well, I can I think I got where you're going with that. Yeah. I guess you're kind of saying the same thing, which I understand. At first, regarding SVP versus SPD and also the percentages coming down together, it is our job to serve the students through event program. SVP doesn't have the job of serving students through events. They have the job of whatever they do. I don't know their mission, but it is SVP's job to serve the students through events. That's the whole purpose. And it's very tough to compare apples to oranges. And that's from every angle, both my angle up here, hearing all this, and from your angle, hearing all this. So I kind of understand where you're going.
And I understand where you're from too. Obviously, nobody wants to cut their own funding a little bit.
And we have been making a lot of cuts to begin with. I mean, even we try to maintain $250 per event in print marketing. So that's our posters, that's our handbills, that's some of the bathroom signs that we use sometimes, not all the time right now, but sometimes. With things like that, I mean, we are cutting the number of students that we hit with our marketing. We also cut some waste too, but definitely as things get more difficult, we all realize how to skip things on our budget. I know this doesn't seem difficult when you see a number like that, but this is about the future. You always got to leave things better than you left them, or better than you found. Anyways. Yeah.
This one's actually. I was going to say, you noted earlier that there was sort of a straw poll vote amongst the members of staff back on SVP potentially giving up a percentage, and you don't have to say who said what, but what was a common reason you heard for the no votes in negotiation?
It's similar along the lines of what I was talking about regarding the value to the students at SVP on a relative basis, which hard to compare these things, but there's a belief that in the end, perhaps SPB could use the money best. Given what we currently do on campus.
I have a clarifying question on a couple of different comments that heard you say. In terms of value for the students, are you saying that SPB would bring more value to students?
What I'm saying is that on the basis of what our job is, which is to serve the students through event programming, that on a per student basis, we can be more efficient and effective.
But wouldn't you say that's just doing your job as SPB?
What do you mean? Can you rephrase the question?
Like, you're saying on a per student basis, you're bringing value to the students, true, but you also stop doing that when you give up, right? And isn't that just
No, we're able to do more to further enhance the number of impacts that we have on students.
Then club sports.
I'm not gonna compare apples to oranges, I'm not gonna say that. I
Okay.
appreciate it, Trevor.
I will also ask this question as well. You also provide a little bit more justifications, how you know that extra 1%.
Again, when I say that, I'm not saying that it wouldn't necessarily, I know that's kind of what I said, but in the sense that there's a total of $325,000 $325,400 in costs. And I don't know exactly how these costs have been, like, oh, no, these are, dues, I see. $325,000 in dues minus 16,000 in percentages, 24,000. That is quite a bit. I do recognize that. And right now, they would already have a $16,000 commitment. But I don't know how these numbers are distributed. Club sports did not inform us how exactly this money would change the amounts that are due, and also then, how things like pool use we're talking about would get paid for. So that's what I say about it. Sure, go ahead. Yeah. Go on.
Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
I guess I just want to take a moment to clarify that this is a quantity over quality. You cannot hear me on this. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I should be very uncomfortably close.
Yeah, these mics.
This is a quantity over quality issue. We're talking about the number of students that would be affected with a reduction in the SPB budget versus how successful or how impactful sports getting a little bit more money would ease the access barrier for low income students. And as a student, a representative of the student body, I fully recognize how important SPB is. We have no campus culture without you guys, virtually. We can admit that, student congress events aren't exactly well attended. But in terms of what comes secondary to that is sports on campus. That's another thing that really helps motivate campus culture. And so we're talking about the responsibility to the student body and to making sure that all of our students are equitably cared for. I believe that there's a greater responsibility towards relieving the access barrier for low income students, even though it may be a smaller portion of students who are not be affected than the whole student body at large. And so how do you feel you could stand on that argument in comparison to saying, SPB, we have so many numbers that we affect, but club sports, even though we're trying to help lower income people overcome a barrier of access, the sheer number is more important.
Well, it's not just the sheer number, because I know you said quantity over quality. It's both quality and quantity at SPB. It's not one or the other. It's a both.
We're talking a bouncy house versus a club getting to go to a competition to make a name for themselves.
Well, I wouldn't agree with that, but
Based on what?
I'm thinking about what I'm going to say here.
I want to make sure that you have time to feel like you can confidently respond and be like,
I will
which
also
time
say-
regarded, like, I want to make sure that this is the.
I want to answer the question right, because I know you guys want me to slip up here, but,
I don't want you to.
I'm just kidding with you guys. I just-
That's what I'm trying to say, is that there's a lot of.
Oh, I know there's a lot of concerns. In the end, it is both a quality and a quantity argument. I understand that people want to go places. I do. I understand that people want to participate in these club sports. I do. I was never in sports, like I said, but when I was younger, I know I wanted to go places and do things. And, SPP helps facilitate that for students too, and enjoy themselves on campus in another way. So that's what I'll say to that. I'm not going to answer anything.
And I would like to mention one more thing, looking at the expenses. I'm not sure how much is broken down by what, but as the director of sustainability, I have a bit of a problem with the single-use trinkets, single-use plastics that we're giving out at a lot of these events. I mean, these are not sustainable items. To look at different ways eventually in the future to entertain our populace. So this is not something that we can forever. Yeah, and then I also want to.
Thank you.
Legislator Johnson on what about?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. The only thing I wanted to mention as a health sciences major is I was curious if your organization necessarily did anything for, say, physical health, how club sports has students active and contributing sort of to like the crisis we have in America with people not being as active as we necessarily should. And while that doesn't seem to be a huge issue on Oakland's campus, I'm still interested to know if there's any physical activity elements or any health elements that your club necessarily caters towards.
That's a good question. Thank you. With this, I would say more so we're focused on mental health, but there have been a couple of examples where we either collaborated with or did events pertaining towards some level of physical health. One of the events which I talked about that I said was the field day, which we had attempted to do. That was in partnership in part with the rec, where we had hoped to get students active by doing things that we used to do when we were kids, doing a field day. So that's one example. We have been supportive of the basketball team with our tailgate. Now that's not direct activity, but certainly supportive of basketball. We also have done the mental ballroom, which is a different form of physical activity, which allows students to be active and kind of have an easier entrance relative to perhaps joining a sport if they aren't active in the moment. So things like that, sure.
Legislator Brunner, Richards.
So I know you had mentioned that part of the reason why you would prefer not to give up that 1% is because of not knowing where club sports would necessarily allocate that money. Correct in saying that, yes?
To an extent, yes.
Okay.
Sure.
If you were to get that information, that data from club sports, would that make it easier for you to be able to give up that 1%? Would that change anything in any way?
I don't know necessarily that it would change anything, but certainly it would make the decision easier to understand. Yes. And again, having more time to be able to do all this is also very, 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 very important.
Majority Leader Johnson.
I'm just saying, legislative chairperson.
Okay, this is a semi-similar question, but I'll preface it again with saying that I appreciate you being here. I know hopefully it doesn't feel like you're grilled too much, but I don't want you to feel like it's like an attack or anything.
Yeah, sure.
But kind of off that point, how you did point out that club sports didn't really say how they were going to use the money. I think you have to be careful with that argument because maybe they just weren't asked.
Well, yeah, that's right. Keep going.
And so I guess my point with that is that obviously, like, I think any organization most comfortable with the money with themselves, where they know like they can
can oversee it. They don't have to worry about other people promising and then not keeping it or anything like that. But I do want to point out that so club sports, we have budget meetings. We actually just we're in the process of having budget. And so the way it works, which I'm not super involved with SAFP, so you can disagree with me if that's the case with SAFP. But typically, as long as your request is realistic with SAFP and it's nothing outrageous, and it also falls within their guidelines, you'll get for what you're asking. But with the budget meetings, what we do is, we'll kind of point out every little piece in our budget, and then we just cross our fingers that maybe we'll get the maximum allocation. But we all know that maybe one or two orgs are going to get allocation, because that's just the way it goes. And so I just want to make sure that point is just kind of continuing to be echoed, because I think that even if this year, it's decided, obviously not just us, through everybody, that nope, we want to keep, that percentage with you guys for this year. That I think it's just important for the ongoing conversation, to allow that ongoing conversation to continue, that maybe, next year or something, if we're not able to make this happen this year, if more questions need to be answered, that those questions are answered, and it's not just shut down, we're never going to talk about this again for as long as we,
We are always very, very concerned with staff back in general. All of us there. We do care. And again, it just goes back to the county, what we said, we do feel more secure with the money here because we know where it is. So, in the long run, in the short run, just as anyone.
President Ruby.
So when you're saying you feel more secure with the money being in SPV because you can do more with it, can you explain why SPP is more valuable to the university than the 272 hours that are funded by SCFD?
I don't think that that's a fair argument in the first place. I'm not saying that one is more valuable than the other at all, but it should be noted that with this, just to consider it, that in the past, club sports were funded by SAFP in some way, shape, or form. We believe that's correct. So there's definitely more of a precedent for money coming from that angle when these club sports were once just clubs before they were club sports. I'm not going to go back into the cost per student. I think you guys have heard that enough. But
Also, to give a little bit of insight into the measurement of what value looks like. Currently, SAFB and SPB are matched at the highest percentage of 27%. Yes, just to be very clear, if this bill were to pass as is SPB, going through with giving up that 1%, SPB would quite literally be putting itself in a higher value. Just for everybody to get how we're measuring that.
I also was curious because I know you talked about making sure you have enough money available to do your events, and we're trying to understand exactly what that looks like. What does campus look like with an SPP at 26%? And I'm also wondering, do you have the numbers on the balance in your Flex account? Because I know when you guys sell tickets to students for events, it collects there, and so.
as of 2 weeks ago, it was 147,000.
In addition to everything here?
No, that is the account.
No, your Flex, when you buy.
Oh, that's
you
separate?
sell tickets, it's separate.
Oh, we don't have a Flex, it's just an account number.
So, do you know how much that total is of when you sell tickets?
Oh, yeah, no, we have,
How much revenue?
allocations. Yeah, we don't have revenues.
Just because, I mean, other SAFAC boards, we pretty much just get the SAFAC allocation with SVB, you would get the SAFAC allocation, but then you also have money that you earn through selling.
Right, and I know that for most part anyways, the ticketed events allow a whole bunch of different students who are actually aren't from here to go to places they haven't been. So, Hello Weekends, which is one of the ones that we cut out this year, was probably the highest requested event that we lost. Concerts, people don't really know about that as much, but, with that, we set our ticket prices to be sure that we subsidize quite a bit, so, I don't have the cost for a student, something like Hello Weekends, but let's go to something else.
I'm just wondering how much is revenue from.
It's relatively limited, I'd say,
Do you have the number?
yeah. So like, for example, bowling night.
Was bowling night like highly attended?
90 students, that's pretty decent considering that we have. So with bowling night, it was a cost of $1,800 to rent out like 20 lanes, 15 lanes, something like that. And then collected a revenue of $5 per student, which totaled $500 or $490. That's an example. That's not an accurate number. It isn't included in here, but that's one example. And then the other one would be going to ranking, which that was meant to be our replacement for Cedar Point, and that was not as well received as Cedar Point, to be sure. It was certainly cheaper. It was just a bus trip there, kind of like Chicago. But still, the international students who we had talked to, they really seemed to enjoy it. So being able to see a different part.
Dr. Mendes?
My question is, so I guess looking at all of this, looking at how much of and this is not me accusing you of anything, how much of a battle, just overall, like in general, the funding has been, and looking at how minuscule our SAF allocation is, would it be reasonable to say that maybe next year there should be some sort of wide push on administration to raise that? Because we attended the student government conference at Eastern Michigan, and two of them, Flint, receives $40 out of an allocation, and they're fighting for 60. You know, they're fighting for that much. So I think that one solution here we're not really looking at is trying to put more pressure on the administration to I mean, looking at it bluntly, they raise tuition by the legally maximum allowed amount every single year. They can't raise it a penny more because they'd be violating state law. So I guess why don't we all try and find our common ground, join together, and fight to increase that out. You know, admin really doesn't need another vice president.
Can I have something respond to? Was that a question or just?
It was a question. Like, would you, or at least do you think the future of SPP and other staff faculty leaders would be interested in trying to put pressure out? Because it's at the end of the day, they're not our friends.
It is. I would say that there's certainly an argument to be heard that there be a benefit to more money being in that pool, because then we don't go around here worrying about how much we have, you know, so much. But the most I would do is just talk about SPP. So we do to advocate for that, but I wouldn't do that here. So myself, that would be a different discussion elsewhere.
And Majority Leader.
You hear me online?
You're good. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. I'll start with Mary. Thank you for coming and chatting with us this evening. I know we've all got stuff going on later, so questions brief, but I do have a couple of them. To start, would I be correct, since I don't want to misquote anything, make sure my question is accurate. Did you say that a reduction of 1% in your funding would impact the events you're able to do in terms of SPP?
So monetarily, it would be 1 to 2 events lost. Realistically, we've already cut bare bones on a lot of our events to the point where it gets more and more difficult to be able to cut any more. So it would lead to more events being cut. And I know that it seems like there's a lot of money in here, but again, that disappears pretty fast. Just as all of you know here. Like, how much is SAP sitting on right now?
I got opened up.
Just for the sake of curiosity and clarity. Right.
First semester, we are allocated the same amount, for
Yeah.
but I thought I had the budget open. Sorry. As of right now, we are at 300,000-ish.
Okay, that's before the deposit, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's still another 100,000-ish coming in there, maybe 110,000. I mean, again, these numbers here, and this isn't completely accurate. We updated this recently, but is that accurate? Okay. Anyways, either way, it's a lot of money, whether it be 10,000 more, or 5,000 more, $2,000 less. It's a lot of money, and it does eventually start having an impact on what we're able to do, because we've all seen the way things are going. We're trying to protect ourselves from the future. This is not a nest egg. This is an inflation egg right here. So we're just trying to.
My next question would be, do you know, and it's perfectly fine if you know this is more curiosity, do you know in dollar amount how much a reduction would be for your budgets if you were to?
$8,500 roughly. That's based on this past year. So that's, I think, roughly 4,500 for summer and fall, and then another 4,000 for winter. That's always estimates, but this is roughly what we're looking at 100% there. Yeah.
Could you give us a characterization or an idea of what the cuts of event events would look like for your organization?
It's not easy to compare. That's a good question. That is a good question because for those of you, I'm sure most of you don't really know how the SU planning process works. We get together in the summer with an estimate of how much money we're getting. We don't know how much, right? We don't get it until well later. And after we take out payroll, which is another thing that we're trying to work on to make even better so that we can lower things a little bit to be able to get more money to the students, which I might add is something that we did in the fall to be sure that more students could get their money at their events rather than paying for us. Go ahead, will you say something? So it's difficult to say exactly where that amount will come from in the long term, but there is an impact. There's always been an impact. I mean, there's little things that we can get rid of here and there, like hump days, but that's our biggest, you know, and if you start cutting out events, you're cutting out the opportunities to hit different crowds each time. There's different groups of people that we serve with different groups. So I can't say which one it would be.
And I think you mentioned earlier that the reason you had a more updated version of the budget than the one we.
It might be by like $1,000, a couple $1,000. So we had it in here. You can see it on there. No, it's not that. So what it is in the fall there.
Yeah.
So you see, can you go up to the very top, please?
Yep.
Is this summer? Or summer fall? I should say. Go up to the next one here. Yeah. So scroll up.
It's slow on my end.
Okay, yeah, okay. So, here. This $100,000 there, it says fall 2023 allocation. I think the biggest difference there is just that I changed it from the $150,000 estimate to $129,000 and 785 cents, or $129,785, which is summer 2 plus fall, that allocation. And then the summer 1 allocation is $19,568, which is $49,000 and something instead of $50,000. That's the difference there. So go ahead and hesitate.
I'd like to make sure the information I'm seeing is.
Yes, for the summer and fall it is. The winter it's not because it's constantly changing. So, but for summer and fall, that's pretty much all just done. So,
I'll let someone else ask.
Didn't say like.
We're doing a lot of squibbling about the value that SPB provides to students versus club sports, and a sentiment has been advocated in here that the culture of the school exists in the SPB events, and I won't deny that SPB events have an impact on the culture at Oakland University, but I think that it's much more true, and I think that most people in here would agree that the core, the heart of Oakland University is in our student organizations and our club sports and the communities that students are able to find when they come here. And what we're talking about in your words is a loss of 1 or 2 of your 15 to 20 events per semester or 30 to 40 events per year in exchange for lower dues and lower costs for students who would like to make a community here and you are arguing that 1 or 2 missed concerts is equivalent to that?
Well, what do you mean, just events, not concerts?
That's different, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess if you are interested in the concert aspect, that was one of the biggest draws when you walk down the hallway, but, in terms of the events, again, it's very hard to compare apples and oranges, but SPV does bring a significant value to students, especially those who might not have any other place on campus, so.
I'd like to add on to what Tyler said. I know a lot of people who chose to come to OU because it would cost a lot less than other schools. At what point is 1 or 2 events getting in the way of closing the gap for low-income students who want to participate in clubs? Because I know that's a huge struggle. I used to be an athlete, and it costs.
I guess the big question then becomes, what kind of impact would this money have on club sports? Because I don't know the relative balance and the benefit from one place to another, which we were comfortable with the other 2 organizations. SPV isn't comfortable with that too.
So I know you mentioned, or the sentiment I'm giving you, you can tell me if I'm.
Hold on, can I hold up for a second? This might be my last question.
Oh, okay.
We were just talking.
You got it. Leave Susan choose whatever. So I know the sentiment I've been getting is that your main goal here is to protect SPV as much as possible, which. So I guess a question I could ask is, what would you need to see for you to feel comfortable with giving up a percentage to help club sports? Now, I know you've refrained from doing any advocacy directly based on a question, which I think there's a lot of information. And I know you don't want to get into the with that right now. So I was going to initially ask, would something like that give you a bit more comfort in making that decision? I'll refrain because. So I'll ask, what would you need to see for you or SPV to be?
It's tough to say exactly what, in terms of, are you saying in terms of finances then, like?
Just from a financial standpoint.
Yeah.
What would SPV need to see to feel comfortable giving up? I feel the hesitancy, and if I were in your position, I'm trying.
Well, again, it kind of goes towards that value per student. I know it sounds stupid in some way, shape, and form because it's comparing one thing to another, but you know, it's an impact of, you know, a couple bucks on 100 students versus, you know, a couple bucks on more than 100 students. That's, I don't know exactly what I need to see. I just need to see one. That's really what it is. So.
More what?
More information as to how the money will be used.
So information from club sports and they distribute.
Yes, and how future distributions would be impacted by both the 2% here and an extra percent somewhere else. But before I go, I just want to reiterate something. Is that right? Am I allowed to do that? I just want to reiterate that perhaps there should have been more time for something like this to occur in the first place, so that club sports could come out here and speak up for themselves instead of me having to defend myself and SPV and perhaps we need more time to be able to discuss these things, even though we have an abundance of time. We need more time to discuss these things to be sure that club sports and the students who are impacted by SPV and club sports and every other SAFAC organization who's in this bill and who's impacted by this bill, so that they have a voice an opportunity, I should say, to voice their opinions. So, what I have to say about that.
Thank you for joining. All right, thank you for joining us. We appreciate the information and look forward to seeing what we can do about that. So with that, looking at the agenda and also as I know will. Is there any motion to bring this? Okay, is there a motion to bring the discussion on this related bill, CBC 621, forward? So we can discuss this now and find out what we're doing today, so we can make that our priority. And we can take precedence. And also to discuss.
One of the things
Oh, I apologize. That was from the gallery.
Wait, so we should have to.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and move this bill up, and then we'll go ahead and do commercial gallery just to.
how many meetings are left in the current news?
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was just next week. That would change whether or not we want to really make sure.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a meeting on the 5th, the 12th, and the 19th.
Oh, all right, perfect. Then. I thought that we were in a bit more of a time. Yeah. Gotta introduce
Okay,
those new
so what's
bills.
gonna happen, we're gonna discuss the guest speaker, we're gonna do comments from the gallery, and then if somebody would like to motion to bring that bill forward, you can prioritize that. We're gonna do that so we can go our discussion. Yep, okay, discussion about the bill. Chairperson Markowitz.
First of all, I'll motion to have that bill brought. But I think.
Is there a second? Who seconded that?
Would we want to do that before or after? It seems like the gallery. Okay, all right, I misunderstood.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so kind of in response to everything, I think like it's pretty clear that obviously like at this point SPB isn't going to lower their percentage. I think, in my opinion, that decision should be accepted and we should move on. I think the scariest thing to me is for us to say, oh no, they need to give up a %, and then for there not to be a referendum on the first through third when voting is open, and then for us to try and figure something out. I know through the standpoint of club sports, I've been working on this for so long. I can't even remember how many months ago I wrote a resolution saying, hey, I think they should put more money. And so the fact that we have the opportunity to put forth before the students, to allow the students to have sports be more readily funded, I think that we should absolutely take that opportunity and avoid continuing to put it off because it's been put off for so long.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that I had read when I was reviewing the terms of like bringing a referendum to the ballot that it doesn't have to be concurrent with the presidential ballot. Are you allowed to hold a non-concurrent referendum? Obviously, that would be not an ideal situation. Okay, I wasn't sure. Well, I wasn't sure either. That was why I was.
Consensus is that it's.
All right, awesome. My favorite. I just meant it's like a last resort.
Chairperson Bowman.
So I kind of wanted to respond to what Chairperson Markowitz said. I do believe very strongly that, pushing this off puts club sports at a really difficult place because, as was mentioned, they are severely underfunded and in a deficit. Although I do believe that there is room to potentially find that other 1%. I think that we should not settle in this because we know that 3% still realistically is not enough to make the difference that club sports need. And I believe that there is the opportunity for us to get that 1%. And if we can do that, we should most definitely prioritize that.
President Murphy.
I think also, I think a lot of those I'm feeling also, it's like, I don't think anybody in this room, is against giving funding to club sports, but, OUSD, we have nothing to gain, obviously, from club sports getting, 1% less. The reason we're pushing for this is because we want them to get everything that they've asked for. And so I think what everyone is saying is out of a want to do the right thing. And I just wanted to make it clear that we're not gaining anything from just turning out in a certain way. You have nothing to gain or lose here.
Majority Leader Johnson.
So, once again, I think essentially I'm communicating before, and I think it's pretty present here. I personally, agree with me in this sense. I feel that because the outcome of this legislation impacts a specific group more than another, I would feel more comfortable hearing from more people from club sports specifically on what they want us to do with this legislation. Because at the end of the day, we can argue from here to high heaven, but none of us, unless you're in a club sport, actually is that affected by the vote we take here when we decide to vote on this legislation. So I personally would feel more comfortable hearing more people impacted by the legislation before we decide what to do.
All right, I'm gonna go to Chairperson Markowitz and then we need to move on.
Just wanted to say a couple other thoughts. So I guess I never particularly articulated, but currently I am vice president of the hockey team, and I'm also the treasurer of the table tennis team. I was vice president, so I had to switch. And so with that being said, I've talked to Kyle numerous times about this, and I have had a continued dialogue for the last several months. I think the thing is that I think all of us in club sports were like, okay, cool, like last year, like we're ready, like it's gonna go on the ballot, and then like we're gonna get it, this is awesome. And then all of us were like, what? We're not, what do you mean we have to wait another year? When I had my budget presentation with Kyle, and Carol was also there, who's a club sport representative, we were talking, he said to me that as soon as we have the voting that opens, that to send it to him, so that way that he can kind of send it to all the club sport board members, and they can pass it along to their members. Because as somebody from club sports, we are so desperate for this to happen. And yes, it's tempting to be like, oh, well, what happens if we could get more money? But we just want anything more than we're getting right now. And if that needs to be, if we need to wait longer for a year or 2 or 3 years or something for that conversation to come up again and for us to, boost it a little bit more, I'd much rather wait for that than, try and get all 3% of the same.
Just to add some information as to how this has gone through SAFAC and everything like that, and Kyle's involvement as well. Last year I was on SAFAC again, that time as a feature, but at that time, around elections time last year, we asked Kyle if he wanted to put this on the ballot last year, if he wanted to present and start that process. He said he did not. Just for that. I know that he's appeared to be an advocate, and I don't see why Keith made that decision. But that is something that happened. Right. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and move on. If anybody has comments from the gallery, you may line up and speak.
I was thinking that it might be possible if we're expedient, you guys could draft new legislation that perhaps makes these percent changes only effective for the next fiscal year and that year alone. And that would, give club sports the lifeline that they need, and also would give students opportunity and student body advocate with the administration for overall the funding that we all receive. Because it's clear that none of these most of these organizations here aren't receiving the funding that they would like. Obviously, that's not always possible, but I think it's clear from the university and the financial, state of other universities that there is a discrepancy in Oakland University's structure of how they're broken down. And, for example, in the state of the university address, president of Oakland, she announced that this 3-year long campaign we had for the state, it was called Strato 45. And basically we ended up with $11.5 million more in yearly funding from the state. So we've had some financial shakeups, in this year. And I think there's clearly something I feel like we're all in a little gladiator fight at each other. And we should just look up and be like, hey, there's some other people we should talk to. So I was just thinking that we need to be, respect each other's perspectives, because that's just what perspective is. No one is going to, can't make someone see it from perspective. You can only make people sympathize with you. But I think we need to work more to finding the solution to live with for now, and then find a solution that will have longevity and makes everyone happy. Because I think it's very clear that we can't just keep taking money away from different organizations to fund another organization. Because it's just, we're basically just shifting around the same cards over and over again, and that's not going to make it happen. At some point, another club is going to be we're horribly underfunded. And then someone's bound to give money. And eventually a different club, it's just we're shuffling the same cards. That's it.
Thank you.
We have, yes.
Oh, yeah, if you could state your name for the.
Yeah. My name is Logan Mazzaro. I am the general manager of WXOU, and as such, I've been sitting in on these SAFBAC meetings as well. And I just wanted to kind of put us a little bit more on track, because I feel like to me, it feels like that this bill is not about SPV, and it's not about SPV giving percentage. It is about club sports, and it's about club sports getting an extra 2% that was generously given by SAFB, and also as a decision to dissolve the special projects fund. No one in SAFBAC was obligated to get the percentage. It was just a proposal given by club sports, and they advocated for 3. They were very gracious for 2. They were said they would be willing to accept any percentage increase in their allocation, but SPV's name is not even in this bill, which, just to keep things as unbiased as possible and to keep everything, clear. I think Matt made a great point when he said that a vote no on this bill and a vote no to sports is not advocating for SPVs to get an additional percent necessarily, is denying club sports the opportunity to get an additional 2%. And whether, another great point that was made by Larry Pace was, increasing the SAF allocation as well. I feel like, especially with the minimum wage on campus being $15 an hour, labor is a lot more expensive, and I'm sure all of you know how much more expensive just living is now, and that also exists in the professional space where SPV deals as well. So that's all. I want to keep it brief. I know you're itching to debate again soon, so but thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Other guests or other comments from the gallery? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go to discussion of CB 6621. This is the third reading of this. This is presented by President.
Thank you, everybody. So yeah, this is the same as it was last week, and if you don't know what it is, it's the 1% SAP 1% special project funds. I'm gonna say even as the sponsor to this bill, I think clearly we've heard a lot of passion from, I think, all sides today. We heard a lot of people talking about sports, talking about not giving up on any money, talking about increasing funding overall. I think there's a lot of passion on both sides, and I think it would be a disservice to students if we didn't further look into this before making a decision. And I think the most damaging thing we can do is make a hurried decision and rush into something or feel pressure, because I don't want anyone to feel pressure. And so I think that's important to keep in mind. And also, just as a note of what the last Councilman McGalley said about how like, no one had to give 100%, and that's like generously chose to. I mean, you can tell me if I'm wrong, could you? But the initial request was SAFE will give a percentage on the contingency that SPB also gives a percentage. And then it was kind of bullied to the point of, you know, not, well, I mean, it was kind of discussed to the point of like, okay, like SAFE not giving one up unless SPB does, it's really like a terrible thing and blah, blah, blah. And so I don't know if it was like the SAFE did not voluntarily come and say, I'll give you percent and I'll be the only one, right? And one other thing I was just gonna say was, right,
I just want to get the, like, I guess, timeline of how the negotiation went. SAFB, we had a first meeting about it, and SAFB suggested that we could offer 1%, and then we had to have a meeting about that, which is where most of the discussion about this went down. And the contingency, I guess, popped up after budgets were shared amongst staff fact members. But you are correct about the kind of just being discussed, I guess, back into giving it regardless. So just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, discussion. Margaret?
Ron, this will be my last. But I just wanted to comment one more. So just out of curiosity, who here is in physical sport? Okay.
We may have some online.
Anybody? Is anybody on?
I heard there was a comment I would be if I could afford it. I'm scared.
Okay. So I suppose being the only club sport representative here, I just want to emphasize one last time that since we don't know if this could be voted on in like a referendum separate from the general election, that by voting no today, that could mean waiting another year. And I think that is the biggest disservice of sports that we could possibly do, especially considering now if Matt was up there and said, you know what, maybe, let's talk about it more maybe, then okay, maybe there's some room for conversation. But you know, I think he made his stance pretty clear. I respect it. And I think we need to move on. I won't repeat myself anymore, but thank you.
Also, just to go back to the conversation, there was a comment about how he thought he could use more information regarding sports funding decisions, and that may impact. Majority of the and like being big.
Yeah, so looking at the time and everything that's going on today, the fact that we don't have much of it, and because we're not very clear on how things could move forward past this term, I personally would like to put forth a motion to table this legislation to give the parliamentarian time to look through our bylaws to determine the best course of action if this were to move forward. Can a referendum be held outside of the election? And I know Chairperson Markowitz will probably object to that notion, but I would rather solve the clarity before we just start voting. I want everyone to be absolutely clear.
I second that motion to table.
Okay. President Freaky.
I was just also gonna emphasize that this is not something like as Senator Goetz was saying that we did try this last year and it didn't happen. It's not something you can do every year. A big percentage change like this is not something that every year we don't want to come in and be like, we're gonna change everything all over again. Especially students, I think students, if they see this referendum, it's not something that I can get behind as is, and especially without having talked to anybody. We heard about sports today, but we haven't heard from the student activities, from the student orgs who are losing funding and will get less funding as a result of this bill. And we don't even know if it's accomplishing what it's supposed to accomplish. And at the same time, one last thing I was going to say is students, when they see this, what they'll see is that funding is being taken away from their orgs, and then SPB, the richest organization, from all the student organizations, and then Student Program Board, the richest student organization on campus, is keeping all of this money, and so they're just going to see money being taken away from the everyday things that they do. So I don't think that this is a very salient thing with the students, but also I'd like to hear from more students. And I think we have a better bet coming with something that we can actually fully get behind. And I think it's our responsibility as, student Congress to do our due diligence on something and really make sure we are confident in something before we put it forward.
All right, I heard motion to table, which was seconded by Speaker Allen. Let's put that to a vote. Okay, so a yay vote means that you'd like to table this. A nay vote means you'd be prepared to vote right now. Doing extra. Speaker Allen.
Yay.
Majority Leader Johnson.
Yay.
Chairperson Brunner. Yay. Chairperson Smith.
Yay.
Chairperson Brazillo. Legislator Rowley.
Yay.
Legislator Fosna.
Yay.
Legislator Johnson.
Yay.
Legislator Lunger. Yay. Legislator Chairperson Merkel.
Nay.
Legislator Mason. Legislator Mason. Legislator Outing. Legislator Outing.
Yay.
Legislator Salmon. Legislator Salmon. Legislator Smith.
Yay.
Legislator Staley.
Nay.
Legislator Wickes. All right, with that, motion passes and this is tabled. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn by Legislator Wickes. Is there a second? All right, okay, the board to go. Those in favor of adjourning, yay.
Yay.
Nay. All right, with that, we're adjourned at 7:25 p.m.
Make sure you have the